Hey, it's Bob Simon taking a break to tell you about CallRail. CallRail is a product that my firm uses, and what CallRail does is it plugs into your phone calls with your intake and with your clients to record those phone calls as real-time transcripts so you can get intelligence, and with the attorney share plugin, you can actually in real time be able to send a referral out through the marketplace to find the best match, all made possible with CallRail being plugged into your firm's intake with real intelligence. CallRail. Welcome to this episode of the Justice Team podcast on the Justice Team Network. I am your host, Bob Simon, and today we're going to be talking to Captain Spencer Wolfe, who is a lawyer, a JAG officer, worked for the Department of Defense, worked with the U.S. attorneys, has worn multiple hats within the military, is now going off into private practice, but still holding on to your career in the military. Welcome, Captain Spencer Wolfe.
Thanks for having me, Bob. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Did I cover everything there with the resume?
Absolutely, and I'll clarify a couple of points to that, but ultimately, yeah, that's a fair summation.
Yeah, so some of the things we're going to cover in this episode is what it's like to work for the federal government, what it's like to also represent human beings that are, within the process. We're going to talk such things as private prisons. We'll talk such things as federal prisons, because Spencer was there for some of those. What it's like to do secretive work, yet stuff that is open to the public. Because when you try a case there, it's all public record, right? Still?
Yeah, so all those cases have a public record system, have opinions that come out, have there are many of the cases that go through the military courts-martial system are up for automatic review if the person is sentenced to more than 6 months or if they receive a bad conduct discharge. So they're constantly being kind of forward-facing.
So so what is your current role there? Like, how does that work?
Sure. And I told you I had to do a little bit of a carve out here, so I want to do that just as a disclaimer. So everything I'm sharing here is about my experience, but is exclusively my opinion and my viewpoints. Nothing that I'm sharing today is is ascribed to the DoD, the Department of the Army, or the JAG Corps. So wanted to highlight that we have certain limitations as far as engaging in political speech or any kind of those components, but more than happy to kind of talk about that. So my current position, so what I've just transitioned, I actually just left active duty on the 15th of July, received my DD-214, that's the official form indicating the stop of active duty, and I'm in the process of in-processing to a reserve unit. I left active duty as a defense counsel, which is a role for a captain operating as essentially a public defender. And I'll be doing that same role, but for reservists. So still logging my time, but it provides me a lot of flexibility so that I can continue to represent soldiers when they're facing adverse actions, usually on the administrative side, and make sure they have representation to back them up.
Well, and you went to Pepperdine Law School. That's how we know each other. I knew Spencer when he was in law school. We were trying to recruit him to work for a firm because he was such a star. And the guy went off to work for the federal government, become a JAG off.
There was so much about the legal field that I wasn't familiar with. I'm the first from my immediate family to graduate from college, first to go to graduate school of any kind. And so I was really navigating the legal field of my own. And before I really got the opportunity to connect with you, I did a summer internship with a law firm that I liked the practice, but the environment didn't seem like the right fit for me. And so I was looking for a team type of environment, and I had been interested in military service pretty much my whole life. My grandfather was a Marine. My brother was in the Navy for 10 years. I've got cousins that have served all my life, so I was always cognizant of that. That felt familiar. And I kind of knew I wanted to get out of California a little bit and explore and see a little bit more, and my wife was willing to jump on that board with me. So, I took a dive at that. I thought that was going to be fascinating, and it really was.
And one of the things we'll talk about we've heard in the news recently in Florida where they have Alcatraz, where they're going to train JAG officers to be immigration judges to make quick decisions. I haven't been able to see any real follow through with that yet, but is that something that happens? I mean, how does that kind of work within?
So as to that specific utilization, specifically for an immigration court, that's not something that I've seen before, nor did I really see any action being directed that way. Most of those decisions really get held at a much higher level. And then as it feeds down to us, we have to just start familiarizing ourselves with what what are our responsibilities, where's our authority, and how do we operate from there. The closest that I can give you is as a captain, if you're working in what we call the ad law or administrative law shop, you can be assigned as a magistrate for the military judge that's assigned to your installation. And so when individuals are seeking search warrants, you can authorize them when they're, and it's only exclusively to those that are subject to Title 10. That's the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and that applies specifically to service members. So it's in a narrowed scope in that sense. So seeing them operate as immigration judges, while still in a federal realm, much like the military courts are, I think expanding out towards having authority over civilians, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. And, just turning the page a little bit here, where I assume you've been stationed all over the country or world, right? And I know
Sure.
you've 5 weeks had another baby here and, juggling young family, military career, being a lawyer. Where have you been stationed?
So I'll kind of give you the quick run through as far as the locations I popped through. So when I initially joined, the practice for bringing on judge advocates it's an abridged or shortened commissioning process. So normal college graduate wants to commission to be an officer in the Army. They have a 13-week basic course, and then they'll have their advanced training where they get trained in their specialty. For attorneys, where they recognize that, look, we're not going to be front lines, we're not going to be in commander positions leading soldiers. We need to familiarize you so you know what to do in the field and not get in the way and not be a liability. So we did a 6.5-week training course out at Fort Benning in Georgia, just outside of Savannah, where they teach you land navigation so you can navigate with a map and a compass and know how to get to a certain location. We had a week spent on weapons training, specifically for the M4 assault rifle. So we had to qualify, make sure we could shoot sufficiently enough to be out in the field.
Did you ever kill a guy?
I have not killed anybody.
Okay,
I haven't shot a live round at anything but a piece of paper out in the field. But it is really interesting because it's not just, like a firing range that you would see. It's for that qualification specifically, you have targets anywhere from 25 meters to 300 meters out. You have, I think it's approximately 4 minutes to go through 40 targets in different positions. You start standing unsupported, you go into a laying down prone position, fire at a number of targets, transition to a prone supported on a sandbag, transition up into a kneeling position, and then up into a standing position. And so you're constantly moving, changing magazines. But it was, you get to play soldier.
Yeah, and for people that are watching or listening, if you're coming in, if you went to law school, you're not in active military at that time, you then turn that switch. And I assume you're treated a little bit differently, not only going to an officer stool, but also like psychologically with all the other people that have gone through the process of being in the military. And all of a sudden you're popping up, oh, I'm an officer. Like, how's that go down?
So absolutely. And there's two major components to that. One being an officer already, there's the dichotomy between enlisted soldiers and officers. Officers are by the customs and courtesies of the military provided a certain level of respect. And so you add on to that when you're an attorney so there's multiple ways to enter the military as an attorney or become a judge advocate, but the most common is direct commissioning, which is what I did. I completed law school, I got myself licensed, and then I was brought into the military immediately to be a judge advocate. They accredit you with the time that you had in law school towards your time in service. So I was credited for 3 years towards my rank. So instead of starting the first officer rank in the military, at least for the Army, as a second lieutenant, I jumped that rank, was a first lieutenant in training, and roughly 6 months after completing my training, I was promoted to captain.
Wow.
So very quickly, you're in a position as a captain. Most other officers have 4 to 6 years service time. They're already leading soldiers that are in positions where they have thousands, if not millions of dollars of property they're responsible for, hundreds of soldiers they're leading and dictating. And so people see your rank, they don't know your job or your branch specifically, and they assume that you are in a position of high power. For other officers, judge advocates are constantly a point of counsel. They're somebody they rely on considerably. One of the things I enjoyed about it is that for all of the special officers, the special branches that exist to help leaders, help commanders make decisions, my experience was, or at least it's taught within the judge advocate branch, we are the people at the table that will say no when you're surrounded by yes men. And so I always appreciated having that opportunity to say, look, it's not my decision to make. It's not my call. This is your decision. I'm just trying to inform your decision to the best I can. And if you can't do it, I can't say, oh, stop, you just can't. I'm going to tell you all of the reasons it's a bad idea, and I'm going to come to you with an alternative. And so that was constantly the position I found myself in that I enjoyed.
Yeah. So, but what was? I mean, I assume there was some, some frustration that you probably had, for lack of a better term. Representing. I mean, I'm sure you've seen things that you thought were just horribly inappropriate. Probably some things that were very good. Like, can you just walk? Because some people have no idea. They're just civilians, like I am. Like, what is that like, dude?
Absolutely. So, for a portion of my time in service, I actually taught a class to soldiers about understanding the military structure. So there's the common ones that those that are connected to the military world or the legal world are familiar with, our trial courts, our appellate courts, that structure, the elements of a crime. But there are unique military components that if you're in the military, you absolutely have to be aware of. And that's, offenses like malingering. If you fake an injury or an illness to not go to work, you can be charged with a crime.
Wow.
There's failure to report. If you don't show up at the time we told you to, in the uniform we told you to, we can charge you with a crime. If you don't go to your doctor's appointment, which was your ascribed place of duty, that can be charged as a crime under the UCMJ. So common things that civilians or that those living a normal life, you're like, dude, I missed a doctor's appointment. Shucks, it is what it is. In the military, you'd see commanders that understood. Why did you miss? My car broke down. I couldn't get there. I was calling, my supervisor. I was calling my leader for help, and they know what was going on. Okay, you let us know. We get it. Stuff happens. That's fine. I saw other leaders. Look, you missed 2 doctor's appointments. That means that we are putting you in for punishment. And the means by which they could issue punishment, especially when you're talking about lower enlisted soldiers.
You never see that be abused. I assume you can almost anything could be a crime.
Right. That's the point is, and this is me as a defense counsel. This is the mentality that I had that really started to take over my latter time of services. I watched commanders say, oh, you know what, I'm going to issue, it's called Article 15 punishment. So under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, Article 15 provides commanders can issue a type of punishment. Depending on how superior the officer is, the higher punishment they can impose. At the lowest level, a company commander, if you're of a very low rank, they can take your rank. They can take a certain amount of your pay for the month. They can force you to do extra duty or work extra hours, or they can put you on restriction. They can tell you you can't go off post. You can't go anywhere after work hours. So the authority that they have and the means by which they would impose it. Somebody missed 2 doctor's appointments, or they showed up late for PT at 6:30 in the morning 2 days this week, and they want to take a week of their pay. I'd have these soldiers come to me and I say, look, help me understand, what is your financial situation? Do you have a car payment? Do you have a phone payment? Do you have an insurance payment? If your commander doesn't know what's going out of your bank every month, and that if they take this pay, you fail to pay your bills. You're now going to lose your cell phone. You're going to lose your car. That should matter to them. And that's, you try to make that persuasive story of at least, look, if you think I need to be punished, great. Please don't punish me in this way because it's going to hurt me so bad that I can't recover. I had many commanders that we pitched that story to, and they understood, and they would.
Sounds like you're just doing a lot of like mediation. Like it sounds like the commanders, people higher rank, could abuse their power so they wanted to, but if you made them understand the other stuff that's going on, you could change it. I mean, ideally, that's would be the.
Sure, I think my experience has been, and I would tend to believe that you agree with me. If I'm not standing in a courtroom, most of what I'm doing is mediating.
Yeah,
and it's mediating the expectations of my client, or mediating the authority of why for a lot of people. And so yes, these commanders, I could see them just firing things away and taking action towards people. Even when I was the one advising commanders, I had ones that wanted to throw the book at people, and I'd sit there and say, can we have a conversation about this? I don't love actioning this. I don't think it's good for the people that you're leading. It is, again, it's your call. But I'm going to have a conversation with you because I feel like it's my obligation, and I feel like it's my job to try and help put you in a better position. I may not have as much military experience as these leaders, but as somebody who went into law school a little bit later, worked in the real world, has really tried to develop my interpersonal skills or soft skills, understanding how do you motivate.
Well, yeah, I mean,
people.
let's talk about what you did before you went to law school. I mean, working on those interperson skills, like what were you doing to work on those interpeople skills before law school?
So it was a lot of the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
Actually, I bartended and I waited tables. I got into the restaurant industry at 19 after my freshman year of college didn't go so hot. I was at community college, just trying to figure out what the next step was, and I didn't love public speaking at that stage, but you force yourself to walk up to a group of strangers. And, hey, how's everybody doing? What can I get you started with tonight? You do that enough, and you start realizing, you know what, it's not so bad.
We ended up at a bar one time in Westlake where you used to
Pikey's.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. But we were talking off air today that I think you drove. Last station was Kansas.
Yes. Sorry. I know you were asking about stations.
Yeah, we always go jump around.
I
Because
apologize. So from Fort Benning, Georgia, I went to Charlottesville, Virginia. So it was actually on the UVA campus. The Army has the only legal center and school in the military, so they have their own permanent residence on the UVA campus. I studied there for about 3 months, and then I got my first official duty assignment, and that was to Fort Bliss, Texas, located in El Paso. So West Texas, which worked out somewhat well for me as much as it's a little isolated. I had family there. My dad was born there. So easy transition. Within 6 months, I was asked to go on a rotational deployment to Korea. So I was stationed in South Korea for 9 months by myself. My wife was left behind. And she actually went back to California and stayed with family. I completed that. I spent another 15 or so months in El Paso. And then I got my next change of duty orders to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. And I spent the last 2 years that I was there at Fort Leavenworth. And then with the role that I had, I would bounce around quite a bit. So I took cases at Fort Carson in Colorado Springs, one at Fort Knox in Kentucky, and then representing clients in a couple of different areas. I traveled to Illinois once because we just cover a region, cover anybody who qualifies.
If I recall, you were working for a person, defending somebody, I think in Colorado, that was kind of there they weren't supposed to be there.
Colorado, no, so his unit was located there. That individual was correct. That was just a unique, again, experience because I was working with a civilian defense attorney. The client had hired a civilian defense attorney, but the Army still provides our services if they request it. So I was working with a civilian as well as having my independent attorney responsibilities for a client and navigating, developing a strategy with somebody that wasn't a military member. Super unique experience, week-long trial, complicated insurance fraud case that was a great experience, very trying.